wanted it. Nobody wanted to fight. Listen, this is sometimes the absurdity of this is hitting me. We have no border with Iran. We have no historical conflict with Iran. The Iranians are sympathetically mentioned in the Bible as our friends. So historically, and you know, in the Middle East, there are only 4 real historic nations that were not a Sykes-Picot, Western geographers drawing a map, which is Israel, Iran, Turkey, and Egypt. So there's no reason for this ongoing dispute. And alas, this regime has decided that all he wants is to develop a nuclear program in order to have a bomb, in order to throw it on Israel. So we had to act.
Thank you. You mentioned the JCPOA, Mr. Lapid. Thank you for saying that. Of course, in 2018, when the last Trump administration pulled out of that agreement, it was understood that that was because of Israeli pressure. I wondered, did you think that that was the right decision at that time? And do you agree that we do now need a negotiated situation close to the JCPOA again now, in order to make sure that Iran isn't able to covertly develop this capability again?
Well, in my opening, it wasn't even an opening remark, it was an opening remark. I said that I disagree with Prime Minister Netanyahu in most things. One of them was the way they acted opposite the JCPOA. Getting rid of the JCPOA without a clear plan of what do we want to have instead of this was wrong. And by the way, without getting our European friends, this was, you know, back in history, I don't know if you remember this, but England used to be part of Europe. But basically, doing this without our European friends was a mistake. It should have been a coordinated effort and not one-sided. So I think the JCPOA had its flaws. I used to discuss this with our American friends in length, but it was but making it disappear without a coherent plan of what should come instead of this, just saying we're going to have full sanctions, but the full sanctions does not include our European friends, so it's not full sanctions, wasn't the right way to go about it. So what we do need is an agreement that is better than the JCPOA, stricter, better supervision, tougher terms.
Thank you, very, very helpful. Another criticism that has been made in the international community is around international law, the initial strikes made by Israel in this round of conflict. Many people have said that, and we've spoken, Iran may have been months or years away from developing a nuclear bomb, so that there is no clear international legal precedent for the attacks. What is your position on that, and do you think it's damaging for Israel to be seen again after so many occasions to be breaching international law?
Well, what's the committee's position on an atomic bomb exploding in Israel in terms of the international
This would, of course, be a disaster.
Yes. So yeah, you know, it's always a conflict whether or not to raise holocaustic arguments in discussions like this. We didn't speculate, we didn't feel, we saw the intelligence that tells us that Iran is rushing into the bomb, and the international law cannot do anything about it, or it doesn't have the willpower to do something about it, the international community. And we thought we cannot sit on our hands. Now, we are a law-abiding country, but the right for self-defense is part of the international law, especially opposite existential threats. So this is why we have operated the way we did. Let me remind you, if you're talking about the international law, there are only two countries, two member states in the United Nations, in which one is openly saying that its goal is the total destruction of the other. The Iranians have said it again and again on public platforms. We are the
Israeli ministers who have said similar things about the population in Gaza and Tehran. I mean, if we're just picking out individual statements.
Okay, hang on. And let's not go into that rabbit hole at this moment. Can I perhaps approach it from another way? Let me see if I can put it this way. So we've heard your evidence that that Israel was under threat, and certainly the bellicose language used by Iran was something that we put to the ambassador. The fact that they had nuclear material that seemed to be much purer than 3.6% without any kind of explanation for it also is very threatening to Israel. We appreciate all of that, but the evidence that the threat was an imminent one is something which is, I think, an important point. And although it's something that the Israelis have said, and sometimes the Americans have said, some Americans have said, and some Americans have said many things, within a few days. What we haven't had is we haven't had any evidence. And I wondered why, if the Israelis believed that they were under imminent threat, why it was that they didn't produce that evidence before the international community. Don't you regret not putting that evidence before us all so that we can understand why it was an imminent threat as opposed to a threat that may happen within a few months or a few years? And as my colleague has said, if it's a question of the threat a few months or years ahead, we will get back to that position again unless we have negotiations.
It's a fair question. If you are, while you're presenting to the world the factual imminent threat, usually it's too late. But on top of this, and of course, you're always limited by the fact that you don't want to surrender your intelligence sources. Now, the entire international community is a bit post-traumatic from the United States going to war against Iraq based on information that is flawed. This is not the case.
How do we know that?
What?
I'm so sorry. How do we know that you're not going to war on the basis of flawed evidence? We haven't seen anything at all, flawed or not.
You saw you saw Fordow, you saw Natanz, you saw Isfahan, we've shown the Americans, of course, large with the cooperation or sharing of information was quite extensive. And I'm going back to the beginning of our conversation. I am no fan of Israel's government, and I'm going to have, I don't know, if easy time discussing with you about Gaza, but easier time than the government, because I completely disagree with what they're doing there.
We will get on to that.
On this one, at one point or another, you will have to decide who you trust. So I'm telling you, if you want to know who you trust, Israel or Iran, on this, you should trust Israel.
Let me see if I can approach it this way. Because we talk about trust, and obviously, I think we seem to all be agreeing that in order for